Hello? It seems as if the microphone isn't it seems as if the camera isn't working. How odd. Turn camera on, it says. It seems as if the microphone isn't it seems Echo, excuse me about this. I'm going to be with you in a second. YouTube hates me. I love technology. Technology is my favorite thing. It really doesn't make me pathologically angry. Now I see my beautiful face. Welcome to all those who are not watching the 5 Games for Doomsday live stream from the kitchen of the cabin. It proves it's a kitchen because I have a cup of tea in my hand from which I shall drink. Now, I don't know, it's very jittery and jumpy on my computer. I don't know if that's the case with everyone else. Ulf, good evening. Is this terrible? Do I sound like a robot? Do I look like I'm jittering backwards and forwards, Ulf? Every live streamer does this, right? Is this working? This is what live streamers do. They spend the first 5 minutes going, is this working? Have I got a connection? Can you see me? Am I going to kill myself in a minute because technology hates us? I can't wait until the day we're all turned into paper clips. And while I'm waiting for Ulf, I shall ramble on. So I guess I want to talk a bit about the games I've been playing. So, sound okay? Video so-so. I assumed that was the case. You can hear me and barely see me. That's about as good as I'm going to get with this absolutely dreadful Berlin internet. There's something wrong with this city and the internet in it. It's absolutely terrible. I go elsewhere. I go to hotels in the middle of nowhere and the internet is absolutely glorious. And I can download things in a minute, which might seem insane and slow to you, but to me it's an absolute luxury. When you've got one leg, getting 2 is wonderful. And Ulf says he's just finished a bottle of wine, so it might be his eyes. It's 8 o'clock in the evening, Ulf. Oof. I mean, you can't have finished work that long ago, crikey. Anyway, so yeah, what have I been playing? So last night, I played the deluxeified version of Gentis, and we had something of a debate. Now, I mean, I like to pretend that I'm a sophisticate, and so I don't talk about components and things like that. But I mean, these deluxeified versions, I mean, it's very tactile, very pretty. The screen printed wooden pieces are absolutely gorgeous. And it was really nice to play. And I'm sure I could go back to playing the standard version. But this deluxeified version is lovely. It's just a shame it's not mine. But we had something of a debate because it has a theme of being a Civ game. And I said, this is great. And the game is really nice. And it links together really well. And it breezes along. And it's a real pleasure to play. And it looks really heavy, but actually isn't. But it isn't a Civ game. And so we had a debate while we were playing. What does that mean? What is the definition of a Civ game? And if Ulf, you want to contribute, or anyone else who's watching wants to contribute, what is a Civ game? I think for me, I said that there wasn't this feeling that I was building a civilization. What this was an optimization Euro. You were working, especially with population tracks, to be able to play cards. And those cards, even though they gave you special powers, they didn't feel like they defined you as a civilization in any way. I mean, I played through the ages, and your civilization, it feels like it goes through stages and ebbs and flows and ups and downs, and moments of glory and moments of disastrous defeat. And sometimes you're forced to focus on military, and then you go through a golden age of art and a golden age of science. And it feels like the passage of time, whereas this feels like a beautifully designed Euro game. And so to say it's not a Civ game is not to denigrate it. And it doesn't bother me that it has the theme of a Civ game either, but it feels like a beautifully designed Euro game, a lot of disparate pieces put together to make a machine that works really well, but a Civ game, it isn't fundamentally. And also I got it in front of me. Bear with me, I'm just going to take a sip of my cup of tea because I'm English. And this is all we do, the English. We repress our feelings and we drink tea. So I played this. Oh, you're getting a very big close-up of my face. Hello, it's my eyes. Look at my eyes. They're like pies. Okay, so this QE from Gavin Birnbaum. Now this, I bought at Essen last year, and there was a Kickstarter this year for it. And so I have the made at home in the shed version, which is fabulous. Because look at this board. It is truly a thing of beauty. It is a gorgeous oak. I'm going to say oak. I don't know anything about wood. I've lived in a city for 20 years. But a beautiful oak board that you play on. And this game is super simple. 3 mechanics. You do sort of one thing, you bid on something, and you're bidding virtual money. And then someone was playing it with me and they said, wow, there's depth to this. And it is certainly true. There's a lot of depth to this game. And I'm really, because I'm on a Knizia kick at the moment. The other night we played this and we played Modern Art. They beautifully complemented each other. I'm on a Knizia kick, and Knizia is really big on that sort of as simple as possible, as refined as possible, as deep as possible. And this really fits into this. And if anyone has kickstarted this, you're in for a treat, except you won't get the beautiful board. The rest of the components are a bit so-so, but this, and I've been playing my current obsession. So, quickly, John Holmes, I assume it's not that one. It says, evening, good evening, John, and what tea are you drinking? Well, unfortunately, I live in Berlin. So it's kind of difficult to get hold of proper tea. But there's an Indian shop down the road, and they sell PG tips, which is fine. But my tea of choice would be Tetley, if it was at all possible. Mind you, saying that, I had an ex-girlfriend of mine. She lived in Canada, and she would send me care packages because she lived in this little mountain town, and there was a gourmet sort of hipster tea shop there. And wow, she used to send me some tea, and it was absolutely fantastic. But I'm very simple. I like builder's tea. Tea you can stick a spoon in, it stays upright, and no sugar. I weaned myself off sugar in tea during my university days, and I couldn't go back to it now. Yeah, so John says he's always been impressed by the tea selection in Germany, and he orders his, not mine, from the UK. And Brexit may change your plans. John, who knows? Who knows, John? I mean, it's my hope that aliens will land and bring some sense to the world before Brexit happens. And he says he buys Yorkshire tea by the huge cafeteria bag. Yorkshire tea is fantastic. I have some friends from Ireland, and they brought me some Barry's tea because I'd heard Barry's was all the rage. And yeah, it was fine. Wasn't hugely impressed though. Tetley's my thing, which is basically Yorkshire tea. And Ulf is Swedish, and so he says it's coffee all the way for him. And no doubt. I mean, when you've got no light in a country, you need caffeine to keep you stimulated. At least that's what I hear about Sweden. Where are you in Germany, John, by the way? Anyway, yeah, and so I've been playing my obsession, which is modern art. My God. I got into gaming in 2012. You have to excuse me, I'm sniffing because I've got terrible hay fever. And I got into gaming in 2012, and this was the what I'd like to think of as the inter-Knizia period, where people weren't really talking about him. He wasn't having big successful games, and there's been something of a Knisessence in the last couple of years. And I've been playing Modern Art recently and playing other of his games, and I understand now. I mean, I was inspired to play his games after interviewing. Sorry about that. After interviewing him, because he was an enthralling interview, and yeah. So I've been playing his games of Modern Art. Oh my god, my review of it was Monday, and it's just wonderful. It's absolutely spectacular. It is tense and hilarious, and I think I said in the review something about how it buries itself into the core of what gaming is, and that's what it does. It is spectacular. If you haven't played Modern Art, there's loads of. He obviously got the license back and sold it to everyone in the last couple of years, so there's loads of editions out. Any edition will be fantastic. I have the Oink one because that's the German one, and it's beautiful and exquisite like Oink is, you know. And it is just, it affirms what it is about gaming for you. And I think it's interesting when you play games a lot, and sort of I play them sort of semi-professionally now because I'm getting paid to an extent. You go through phases. So I went through a card game phase, trick-taking game phase, and I also went through then a super heavy phase. Like the end of last year, I think it's something to do with winter setting, and I played Through the Ages 3 times in a month. You know, that's amazing for a game of that size. And at the moment, I'm really into light, easy to grok, but deep games. And I'm getting a lot of enjoyment. I played King Domino, which I played when it first came out, but I hadn't really played it. I played that recently, and that's super engaging and really good fun. And yeah, and I was rather worried playing Gentis the other night because I was thinking, oh, it's heavy, and I'm not sort of into heavy games at the moment. But I really enjoyed that too. And I guess I really enjoy heavy games. And I've got a friend who's super into Splotter, and he's just ordered Roads and Boats. So I'll have to play Roads and Boats when it arrives, I guess. So John Holmes, I assume it's not that one, is from Tübingen in the southwest of Germany. And he says, if I'm ever in the area, I can go around for a cup of tea and maybe a booze. What's the local beer there, John? Anyway, so let's get on to some questions. First, I'll go to Facebook. So if you've got anything to ask on the live chat, because I hope at some point it picks up enough momentum that that's what happens. But if you've got something to ask on the live chat, please ask me questions and I shall hand-fistedly answer them. So where am I going? Ding, 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 ding. I'm going to the facey. Do, 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 do. Going to the facey. Yes, 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 yes. So Facebook is going to load in a minute. My computer is painfully slow. I have a feeling that I was part of a electronics inquisition in a past life, and I tortured lots of electronic goods because, quite frankly, they hate me. Sorry, I'm just... Okay, that's great. So, where were we? So, Heiko Müller, a guy I know. And he asked me, who's my favorite reviewer and why? And I think within the board game world, so my current podcast jam, well, there's two. There's obviously, these aren't reviews. It is an aimless chat podcast, but because the two hosts are incredibly engaging, charismatic, and they really are good friends, and they're able to hold a great conversation. Obviously, Sporadically Bored is fantastic. I've been on it a couple of times. The latest episode with Richard from We're Not Wizards is great. I was on his show, if you want to listen to that. Two, yes, Bobo is great. My current podcast jam, though, is Punchbowl Paradise. I had them on the Guild. I really like the three guys. I think they're super nice, and they're super nice, and they balance it between sort of banter and talking about games. And it seems that they don't do anything but play games. They always talk about when they're reviewing the games, how they play the game 10 times and things like that. How the hell do you do that, quite frankly? But yeah, I really like that. And I think he's just popped on the chat. I think what Matt is doing, Matthew Jude, his reviews are great. And they're insightful, and they're beautifully filmed, and he's engaging and funny. And, you know, Matthew and Dan were sort of the innovators of the non-review formatted board game show with This Game Is Broken. So tee up to Matt, he's great. But I think really the high watermark for reviewers in board gaming is obviously Shut Up and Sit Down. They've been doing it for years and they're absolutely fabulous and they're very funny and they're very witty and they're insightful and they do really great reviews. And then a guy who is a great writer, he does written reviews, and I recommend you should go and check him out. I back him on Patreon. This is Matt Thrower. And he does solely written reviews, and he's a beautiful writer. He's a professional writer, it's his gig. And they're written reviews that are as good as anything in board gaming. So I would highly recommend that you check out Matt's stuff. So I am rocking the beard, Tony. It's pure laziness. I'm afraid I'm going to shave it off this weekend before I go camping. So, hello, Ben. So this is Scott Christley. Any older Euros that you like that might be under the radar? He's just picked up Mercator and the Palaces of Carrara. I've not played either of those, and I hear they're absolutely wonderful. People talk about Mercator as being fantastic, and it's one of those Uwe Rosenberg that no one has sort of played, and I hear it's wonderful. Ones that have gone onto the radar for me, I guess Last Will didn't. It's just old. Last Will is absolutely spectacular. Matthias Kramer is amazing. Lancaster is just one of the best worker placement games with a dynamic worker placement mechanic before dynamic worker placement mechanics were a thing. But I think the biggest one is one I wrote a review for, which is one of my favorite games. I have lots of sort of great, it was my first Essen. I bought it on a whim and then played it on the Saturday night. So there's lots of fuzzy memories, but Spirium is just brilliant. Spirium is brilliant. I highly recommend everyone play it. Good evening, Ben. This is Phil S. Ever played Notre Dame? I have not, even though I happen to own 2 copies. Sorry for the humble brag. I haven't played Notre Dame. Those early Felds, I haven't. And a lot of people are talking about playing Notre Dame as a, what's the word I'm looking for? Memorial for the cathedral. And yeah, I'd love to play those other Felds, though I hear they're mean. So it depends on my mood. If I get really picked on by a game, I tend to get rather ratty and shout at people. The board game hobby is the friendliest hobby, yet it's so heterogeneous, contradicting your comment. I'm going to look up heterogeneous just to make sure I know the proper definition of it, if this computer works. Swiss. He's Swedish as well. He knows English better than me. You see, I write my reviews and they're very wordy and everything. Thesaurus.com. It's a wonderful thing. But bear with me, I'm just going to blow my nose. Come on, computer. You can do this. I'm shoveling coal. Yeah, I thought it meant diverse in character or content. I don't see how that's a contradiction, if I'm honest. I think there is a desire for people to sort of ghettoize themselves. I think you mean homogenous rather than heterogeneous. If you mean homogenous, I'm not sure it is. I think it's where you come from. I come from Berlin, which is a really mixed city culturally. And we have, I mean, I feel I really don't want to sort of list people by a singular characteristic, because I think that's happening far too much at the moment, and it's causing division. All sides are doing it, are pushing forward one aspect of their personality, and you're expected to evaluate a person's virtue based on this one aspect, which is obviously unrealistic. But no, I have a very diverse group of people I play games with, yet if I was in the countryside, I would not have a very diverse group of people who I play games with. Ben Parkinson, for instance, who I on the show, I'm sure doesn't have a particularly diverse group of gamers that he plays with, and that's geography, right? I don't think it's a contradiction. I think it's think it's a matter of circumstance. And the more gaming becomes popular, the more it will become diverse. And I'm a big fan of diversity. And back to Facey, back to the Facey. I'm great at computers and computers hate me. Yeah, so I'll talk on, literally, this is the time it's taking for pages to load. But yeah, Matt Thrower, get on to Matt Thrower. His reviews are excellent, and he needs more recognition, I think, within the board gaming world. No one's kind of talking about him. Bear with me seconds. What are the commonalities between ardent board gamers and why are some people immune to board games? It's really interesting. What are the commonalities? I think there is, on the positive side, there's a desire to sort of really drill down into things and pick things apart. And it's no question in my mind that a lot of board gamers are computer programmers, right? Because it takes a lot of analytical skills and a lot of being able to see a problem and work out what in this chain of things is wrong and fix it. So that lends itself. Also, a lot of board gamers are really pedantic on the negative side. And depending on my mood and how much I've slept, that can be wonderful or it can be really tedious. I would say if you feel like you want to make a pedantic comment, really evaluate is the comment worthy or not. And also, I think the more people play games, the more they get into a rut of the kind of games they want to play, and they say, I am this type of gamer. I would also say, if someone offers you to play a game, if you're in a gaming club and you're at a loose end, and they offer you a game and you think, oh, that's not like, you never know. And what have I learned from gaming is Heiko's third question. And what I've learned from gaming, I guess, is that I really like gaming. It's taught me how to structure a review. It's taught me how to deal with a workflow. It's taught me that actually gaming is pretty diverse and lots of different people who are into different things and super interesting things are involved in it. It's taught me lots of things. And it's also taught me that I'm dreadful at games. And I really am below average at games because I love Eurogames compared to most of the people I play with. I always come last, but I can deal with that because I enjoy the games. So Anthony Boydell, doyen of the British gaming scene. And on this subject, I don't want to embarrass you, Tony, if you're still watching, but I'm a big fan of Tony and I play his games and I think they're absolutely wonderful. And one thing that gaming has brought me is friendships with people whose art I really admire. And that's an amazing thing. So he's asking me, what are your con travel plans for 2019-20? 20 is too far in the future to even think about. I'm debating UK Games Expo. I found some reasonably cheap flights, but it's expensive and I still need to find a place to sleep. So maybe UK Games Expo. I would love to. Maybe. Essen, absolutely. Because Essen is absolutely necessary. It's the Mecca and you should go. And I'm fortunate enough to live in Germany, so I go each year. Also, I'm going to Lippe, which is a small village in Brandenburg, about 60 miles outside of Berlin. And a load of Berlin people go there sort of twice a year to play games. Not really a convention, strictly speaking. But I'm going to christen the latest trip to Lippe as the first ever, because it's in the countryside, the first ever cabin con, which is the 5 Games for Doomsday convention. So there's going to be a first ever cabin con. And at some point in the future, I'm going to go to that. Obviously, I'm going to Gathering of Chums in Gloucestershire, which is Tony Woodell's birthday convention. And I went to the inaugural one and it was fabulous. Plum Porter was amazing. And then after that, that same month, so there's 2 weekends that month, I'm going to Dan Hughes' exclusive weekender at Gearstones in Yorkshire. So that's so far. If anyone wants to invite me to a convention, I'd be more than happy to go. All right, over to the BGGs now. Cup of tea. So we have Alex Ansari, Sir Alex, and he says he wants to go back to a comment that was made during my LyriaCon podcast. And he says he's of the opinion that board game quality is actually declining. But he doesn't mean components aren't better. The polish of the final product is what he has a problem with. He seems there's a distinct lack of development or care. Do you see anything that would lead you to think that perhaps our current age of board gaming is not as rosy or golden as it seems? No, I think it's wonderful, actually, at the moment. I think board gaming is in a very healthy place. But one thing I would say is that with Kickstarter, and what I've noticed with a few Kickstarters coming out, and especially going back and playing the Good Doctors games, is that there's a lot of sort of heavy Euros, really interesting themes that seem they're sort of 3 months out. That if they could just have 3 months more work. I was listening to the Punchboard Paradise review of Feudum the other day, or they were talking about Feudum when they reviewed it. And it seemed to me what they were talking about is part of the issue, is that Feudum has got everything in, it's super complex, but unrefined, difficult, and essentially laborious. I think, especially Eurogames, their beauty, when they're really good and they're really humming, is that they do the most that they can with the least. That's efficiency. And there are some Eurogames that are just forgetting the efficiency of design. And that is the biggest issue, I think. Okay. John H. Magic Javelin. Can it produce babies, John? Magically. So do you think board game design has been limited by the need to be fun? No. Fun's a difficult one, isn't it? What does fun mean? When people are sitting down intensely concentrating and not looking up and laughing, is that fun? When you're in a flow state where you're totally focused on something, is that fun? I would venture that it is. And fun comes in loads of different flavors. There's raucous laughter, and there's shouting and faux indignation, and then there's flow and concentration, satisfaction at a job well done. They're both fun. I think if anything, and board gaming is breaking out of this now, thankfully, board gaming has been limited by theme constriction. It either has to be fantasy or medieval trading. This has changed now. And that's the biggest constriction in board gaming. And it's not really an issue anymore. And holding on is a real example of that. And I'm looking forward to seeing more games that push games in refreshing directions, though I love Hansa Teutonica and I love a dry Euro with a medieval theme. And this anachronism, just another soulless Euro, is wrong because they have such incredible soul and incredible depth. And what they do to the neurons in your brain is great. So don't use that acronym. Go to the live chat. Do I have any more questions? I assume I don't. Always assume the worst. So, Ben Tinney, Penguinized, asked me, what is it about trick-taking games? For me, they've been with me my entire life. Trick-taking games are absolutely the core of my gaming experience. I played them with my friends. I remember sitting in a friend James Oliver's kitchen when I was 7 playing whist, learning how to play it. And there's something about having that hand of cards, and from that hand of cards being able to make deductions about what everyone else has got, and also being able to plan through your hand. And my skill at trick-taking games, which is moderate, but I'm probably better at trick-taking games than I am at anything else, is learned over years and years of understanding what to play when. And I think if gaming ever fell off for me completely and I sold every game in my collection, I wouldn't sell Skull King and I wouldn't sell Niet, and they would stay with me, I think. Chad Jacobson, I've talked about him a lot this evening. Well, his podcast, he's 1/3 of the Punchboard Hello, I'm a speaking man. Punchboard Paradise podcast. That's a triple P. There's alliteration, you see. I wish I'd thought of that when I came up with a name for my podcast. 5 Games for Doomsday is not at all alliterative. 5 fabulous, fun, fantastic formulations at the end of the world. Why Berlin? Is there more acting for you there? What brought you there? I don't mean to imply it's not a beautiful city. It isn't. Just curious if it has to do with Korea. So I lived in Vienna for a long time, and I wanted to move because Vienna is a village of 1.5 million people, and I didn't want to go back to England, and I spoke German, so I went to Berlin because I thought that there would be more work there. And there is, I was right, especially more voiceover work. But it's feast and famine, unfortunately. This is the nature of the business. And so sometimes it's great, sometimes it's not. I got an email from my agent asking me yesterday if I was available for a certain date. I wrote back saying, absolutely, I'm available for whatever you can give me, because that is the lot of the actor. And I haven't heard back from them and probably won't. So you get used to this after a while, and that's fine. It certainly gets you used to rejection. I didn't just say I was friends with Jamie Oliver. That never occurred to me. One of my best friends when I was a kid is called James Oliver. Never called him Jamie, in fact. Weird. But it never occurred to me that they share the same name, and they do. And I used to really hate Jamie Oliver because he was just trying so hard. He was just the confection of an advertising agency. You know, let's get some actors to pretend to be his mates. Let's get him a silly fireman's pole in his bloody house and a Vespa, and let's make him a star. And it worked. But actually, I think he's a pretty good egg, Jamie Oliver. I think he's used his powers for good. And I think that's a good thing. And I remember he was talking about what his aspirations were at culinary school. And it was to make the best bread and make the best pasta. That's the kind of aspiration. To be a craftsman, to be great and to be good. And he's happened to be famous. And more power to him for that, the Mockney. So Patrick Brophy, this is the last question. So if you want to ask me more questions on the livey chat, do. Otherwise, I'm going to go, and especially as Liverpool are kicking off in 25 minutes. So Patrick Brophy asks, in a follow-up to my previous question about the separation of art and artist, and the whole Nathan Pyle thing is really interesting with regards to that. Quite frankly, Richard Mulholland, who was on the show, tweeted after that big furore that everyone seems so disappointed. I think what it is with the Nathan Pyle cartoons, everyone sort of thought, he's like me. And then a lot of people realized, oh, maybe he's not 100% like me. And he tweeted and said, oh, newsflash, the internet has said you can't enjoy cartoons made by Christians. And it's so true. I think in this case, I mean, firstly, I mean, I'm pro-choice. Of course I'm pro-choice. But he isn't. And pro-life really isn't a fringe position. I think it's a dangerous position to hold, but I don't think that necessarily makes Nathan Pyle an evil person. And you are the product of your upbringing, right? And so I think it's absolutely absurd that you would then reject Nathan Pyle's cartoons based on that one facet of his personality. who the hell knows what Nathan Pyle's like in real life? We don't. He tweeted once 2 years ago, and now the entire internet, because we have this idea that you should focus on one single facet of who you are, and that should define who you are in perpetuity. And the problem is with that, of course, is because it's been deemed that certain facets hold certain relative virtue points. And if you happen to be born into a facet that doesn't hold virtue points, you then in certain arenas don't get to contribute to the debate, and that's bloody terrible. So I don't know, Nathan Pyle, who knows? His cartoons are fine. I think they're fine. Some of them are great, some of them are fine. But I don't think you should feel guilty about reading his cartoons. So anyway, he carries on. Can you envisage a situation where a currently working designer transgresses in some way that would make you unwilling to buy their games? And that's the question, isn't it? What do you do, right? If you find out someone does something dreadful, someone has done something, and we can all think, I'm not really coarse enough to list sort of dreadful things human beings can do. But someone does something unmentionable. Do I hate their games? Probably not. Do I continue to buy their games? Probably not, because that seems to me that's a kind of tacit endorsement. But do I burn the games I still own by them? Of course I don't. Do I regret the memories, as I said last time? Do I regret the memories I've had with the Michael Jackson thing? Are my memories of listening to Off the Wall with my cousin tainted because of what Michael Jackson did? No, of course they're not. So, no, is the question. I'm willing to buy their games? Yeah, I guess it's a tacit debate. Again, it's on a case-by-case basis. It depends what they've done. And also, the internet tends to jump on people and people. You've seen within board gaming a lot of people being disinvited from conventions because they hold political views that are at odds with a certain local minority on Twitter. And that's not right either. I think, going back to Ulf, heterogeneity is what we want. We want loads of diverse people, but we need an homogenous attitude to tolerance. Someone I'm friends with on Facebook, did I say this last week? Maybe I did. Said, I may be liberal, but what I'm not is tolerant. And that's what I see a lot, and especially in the way people deal with each other on the internet. And that's fine, it's the internet. It's not real people. I listened to another podcast and they said, real people aren't on Twitter. And I think that's true to some degree, because you're not your real self on Twitter. Because you assume someone is attacking you, for instance, where they might not be, because you don't see the inflection in the tone, you don't see those micro signals, you don't see people smiling or whatever. But I think we need a lot more tolerance. We need to understand that people don't think the same way that we do, and that we can deal with that. We can tolerate it. We don't have to endorse it explicitly, but we can tolerate it. We can say, you hold that belief and it's fine. And there are certain beliefs that go beyond the pale. But what I would say is if people certainly hold political beliefs that seem unacceptable, because they are unacceptable, the question you have to ask is why? Why do those people hold those beliefs? What is it in their background that has led them to such an open, unashamed demonstration of hate? There's something going on there. And I refuse to believe that anyone is beyond redemption. And people hate because they aren't loved. And this is why I think the stupidest phrase to have come out of the internet in the last 3 years is punch Nazis. the most moronic thing I've ever heard, because what do you want? You punch a Nazi, you're going to stop him being a Nazi? What you want is fewer Nazis. And by punching them, they're going to entrench in their position. What you want is people who are open to experiencing other people. And punching them just ain't going to work. Even though seeing Richard Spencer punched for a second is funny and satisfying, fundamentally, what do you want? To express your own virtue on the internet and get points in a currency that's unspendable? Or do you want fewer Nazis? I'm plumping for fewer Nazis, personally. Okay, so that's it. That's all the questions. That's everything done. That's a lean 45 minutes. So just before I go, this week's guild, we did Crystal Paisano from Board Game Blitz. Absolutely excellent. You should get on it. I'm recording one after this with Dan Hughes of Spobo. And I've recorded some really cool interviews recently. Asker Granerud, the Flamme Rouge designer. Mike Fitzgerald, gaming legend. And I've just, and I'm not going to jinx it by saying who it is, but I've just fixed an appointment for tomorrow with possibly the biggest name in gaming. And just as a clue, he probably doesn't like Mondays too much, but loves lasagna. So with that, I'm going to say thank you very much. I'm going to go and watch the footy for an hour, then record with Dan. Thank you. I've actually had people ask me questions on this. I'm going to do this again. If you want it more frequently, please let me know. Go to the guild. If you want it less frequently, please let me know. Go to the guild. I am a feather for each wind that blows and a lump of coal in your cold, manipulative hands.